Welcome back to Edzy, your personal AI tutor, for a revision episode on Class 7 English from CBSE Class 7 and our chapter, A Funny Man. We will learn calmly, not rush through a summary. I am Gaurav, and with me is Swati. Keep a notebook nearby if you can, but you may also simply listen while traveling or resting. You may remember the funny man's shoes and hats, but explaining why the poem is humorous can be challenging. Today, we will fix exactly that. We will explore the appearance, dialogue, current bun, song, ending, humor, vocabulary, literary devices, phrasal verbs, extract questions, and exam ready answers. Let us begin with curiosity, because this poem is designed to make you smile while you think.
That is a lovely starting point. And listeners, do not worry if the poem initially feels simply silly. Silly is not the same as meaningless. We will ask why a particular action is funny, how the poet creates surprise, and what the narrator's responses reveal. Keep one question in mind throughout: what happens when ordinary expectations are turned upside down?
The chapter belongs to the world of wit and humor. It introduces a man who walks down a street in a way that immediately attracts attention. The poem does not begin with a lengthy explanation of his personality. Instead, it lets us see him doing something unusual. That is important. His actions become the evidence for his funny character.
Before reading, the chapter asks students to look around and think about things or people that make them laugh. Why do you think that activity comes first? Take a moment and think. It connects the poem with your own experience. Humor is not only something found in books, it can come from a harmless mistake, an unexpected action, or a playful situation.
Exactly. The opening activity prepares us to notice what creates laughter. The poem then gives us a sequence of comic moments. First comes the strange clothing. Next comes a polite but surprising presentation. Then there is a funny song. Finally, the man leaves in an astonishing manner. So the poem builds humor step by step rather than depending on just one joke.
Let us make a quick learning map. We will first observe the man, then study the meeting between him and the narrator. After that, we will look at the poem's mood, language, sound patterns, and form. Finally, we will answer questions. If you can explain the order of events and the reason each event is amusing, you are already moving beyond memorization.
Now let us slow this down. The man wears a shoe upon his head and hats upon his feet. Notice the reversal. A shoe normally belongs on a foot, while a hat normally belongs on the head. The poet presents these objects in the wrong places. This is an example of an unexpected and absurd visual situation, and that strange picture creates immediate humor.
What would you notice first if you saw such a person on a street? Most likely, the unusual arrangement of the clothing. The poet uses this visual image before giving us the conversation. That means the reader can picture the scene and almost watch it like a performance.
There is another detail that should not be missed. The man raises the shoe and smiles at the narrator. The action sounds strange because the shoe is on his head, yet his behavior is courteous. He also has polite manners. This contrast matters. His appearance is absurd, but his conduct is respectful. Humor comes from placing these two different qualities together.
So, should we call him rude because he looks unusual? No, that would be a mistake. The poem clearly presents his manners as polite. A character may behave unconventionally without being ill mannered. In fact, the polite smile and raised shoe make the situation more amusing because the strange appearance is paired with formal behavior.
Exam point. If asked to describe the funny man's appearance, include both parts of the contrast. Write that he wears a shoe on his head and hats on his feet, creating a bizarre or unusual sight. Then add that he smiles and behaves politely. A complete answer should not mention only the clothing and forget his manners.
Let us test that. If the question says, describe the man in 2 points, what two categories should your mind search for? Yes, appearance and behavior. Appearance gives us the shoe and hats. Behavior gives us the raised shoe, smile, and politeness. This simple two-part frame helps you avoid a vague answer, such as, he was funny because he looked funny.
अब तक हम फर्स्ट मेजर आइडिया कवर कर चुके हैं. Humor begins with a visual reversal, but the character is not shown as unkind. The poet draws our attention through a colorful, playful description. This is also vivid imagery, because words help us form a clear mental picture of the man moving along the street.
Now the man approaches the narrator and says, "Allow me to present your highness with a rose." The wording sounds formal and respectful, but the reader soon discovers that the object is not a conventional rose. It is a currant bun. This sudden change between what we expect and what actually happens is the central comic twist in the interaction.
A currant bun is a small bun containing currants, which are small seedless raisins. The detail is useful because the narrator is offered a food item as though it were a flower. The humor is not based on a complicated event. It arises from a simple mismatch between the word rose and the object held near the narrator's nose.
Why does the man call the narrator Your Highness? The phrase sounds like an exaggerated, respectful address. It adds playfulness to the conversation. We should not assume that the narrator is actually a royal person. The man is using a grand form of address in an ordinary street encounter, and that makes the moment even more comic.
The phrase, allow me to present, is a polite request. It shows that the man is courteous while making his strange offer. If this appears in an extract question, identify the phrase directly and explain that it indicates permission being requested in a formal manner. Do not choose the object itself as evidence of politeness.
The narrator's reaction is physical as well as verbal. The narrator staggers back against the wall and then responds with, "Well." Staggered means moved unsteadily. The movement suggests surprise or confusion. The word "well" expresses a reaction to something unexpected. It is not a calm acceptance of an ordinary rose.
Then comes the witty response. The narrator says that rose with such a funny looking smell has never been seen before. This line mixes the senses of sight and smell in a playful way. A rose is usually associated with a flower, while the currant bun is associated with food. The unusual combination makes the reply humorous.
Let us check your reasoning. Why does the narrator say that the rose has a funny looking smell? Is the narrator describing a real rose with an unpleasant smell or reacting to a bun being offered as a rose? Correct. The narrator is reacting to unexpected currant bun. The phrase is playful because it combines the appearance of one thing with the smell of another.
Some students may say that the man is trying to deceive the narrator. The source does not establish that he is dishonest. It presents the offer as part of a humorous encounter. We should stay close to the poem. He politely offers a bun as a rose, and the narrator is surprised. That is enough to explain the comedy without adding an unsupported motive.
Here is a useful answer frame. The interaction is humorous because the man uses formal language to offer an object that is not a rose. The currant bun creates an unexpected sensory contrast, and the narrator's staggered movement and surprised reply strengthen the comic effect. Notice how this answer gives action, reason, and result.
This is a good place for a small, Edzy style active recall check. Close your notebook if it is open and reconstruct the meeting in 3 steps: the polite address, the object presented, and the narrator's reaction. If one step is missing, do not simply reread. Ask yourself which expectation was broken at that point.
The 3 steps are: he addresses the narrator as Your Highness and politely offers a rose. He holds a currant bun near the narrator's nose, and the narrator staggers back before making a surprised comment. That sequence is excellent for a short summary and also helps with extract based questions.
After this encounter, the man begins to sing a song and sits down on the ground. The poem does not move into a serious or frightening mood. Instead, the singing continues the light-hearted atmosphere. His appearance was funny, his gift was funny, and now even the sound of his song is described as unusual.
The narrator says that one has never heard such a funny feeling sound. The expression tells us that the sound is unique and amusing. It is not presented as a normal, beautiful song. The poem uses a playful description so that the sound seems almost physical, as though it creates a funny feeling in the listener.
The narrator then asks, "My friend, why do you wear 2 hats upon your feet?" This question reveals curiosity. It also shows that the narrator has noticed the most puzzling part of the man's appearance. The narrator does not remain silent or merely observe, the narrator enters into a conversation and seeks an explanation.
But does the funny man answer the question? No. He turns the other way about and hops home on his head. This is an important ending technique. Instead of resolving the mystery, the poem adds one more impossible looking action. The unanswered question leaves us with wonder, while the unusual exit gives the poem a cheerful finish.
Let us be precise about the ending. The text says that he hopped home on his head. It does not say that he explained the hats, apologized, or changed his clothing. In an answer, use the exact event supported by the poem. His refusal to explain is shown through his turning away and leaving.
What does his reaction tell us about him? It suggests that he remains playful and unconventional. He does not allow the narrator's question to force the poem into an ordinary explanation. His strange behavior continues until the final line. That consistency is why the ending feels amusing rather than random.
Why does the narrator call him my friend? The poem shows a polite and light-hearted interaction rather than hostility. The narrator is curious and engaged, and the expression my friend gives the conversation a warm tone. It does not mean that we know a long history between them. It reflects the friendly mood of the encounter.
Quick prediction. Before we say the ending aloud, what kind of feeling should the reader have? Dreamy, worried, impatient, or cheerful? The correct choice is cheerful. The funny clothing, playful song, unanswered question, and head hopping exit all keep the mood bright and amusing.
Up tak we have followed the entire event sequence. A strange man walks down the street. He smiles politely, offers a currant bun as a rose, sings, sits down, receives a question about his hats, and hops home on his head. Remembering this chain is more useful than memorizing disconnected sentences.
Now we are entering the central idea. How does the poem create humor? One method is absurd behavior. The man wears objects in unusual places and moves in an unconventional way. Another method is surprise. A rose becomes a currant bun. A normal conversation becomes a playful exchange. The humor grows whenever expectation and reality do not match.
A second idea is the contrast between societal norms and individuality. The man does not dress or move in the conventional way shown in the poem. Yet the poem does not punish him or present him as dangerous. It invites us to enjoy his difference. This supports the theme that humor and individuality can make ordinary life more colorful.
Would it be correct to say that the poem laughs cruelly at the man? I would be careful there. The poem highlights his unusual actions, but it also shows his politeness and creates a friendly interaction. A responsible answer can say that the poem presents eccentric behavior in a playful way, without claiming a harsh intention that the text does not state.
The poem also suggests that laughter can come from simple situations. There is no elaborate plot. A person walks, smiles, speaks, sings, and leaves. The comic effect comes from the way these ordinary actions are rearranged through unusual clothing, a surprising object, strange sound, and an unexpected movement.
If the question asks what the poet wishes to convey by highlighting the man's unusual behavior, build your answer around humor, imagination, and freedom from rigid expectations. The poem encourages readers to find fun in unexpected places and not take life too seriously. Keep the answer connected to the man's actions rather than making a broad moral speech.
A possible alternative title should capture the unusual character or the comic situation. For example, a student might suggest The Man with Hats on His Feet, provided the reason explains that the title draws attention to the most memorable, unusual detail. There is no need to invent a complicated title. The reason is more important than decorative wording.
Your turn. Name two things that create the humorous tone. Think before listening further. A strong response could mention the man's absurd appearance and his unexpected actions. You could also mention the dialogue, the current bun presented as a rose, or the comic description of his song. Several answers are possible if they are supported by the poem.
That flexibility is important in literature answers. Do not search for one magic sentence. Instead, identify the feature, give an example from the poem, and explain its effect. Feature, evidence, effect. This is a reliable three-step structure for questions about tone, humor, character, and language.
If you have a very specific doubt, Edzy can work as a personal AI tutor here. Ask why a particular line is funny and make it guide you through the reason step by step instead of handing you a sentence to copy. Then try explaining the idea yourself. The goal is understanding that survives after the screen is closed.
Let us move to vocabulary. Current means a small seedless raisin, and a current bun is the food item used in the funny presentation. Staggered means moved unsteadily. These meanings matter because they help us visualize the scene. The narrator moves back unsteady after the unexpected object is held near the nose.
Let us also notice the movement words in the poem. The man comes walking down the street, the narrator staggers back, and the man later hops home on his head. These verbs are not interchangeable. Walking suggests ordinary movement, staggering suggests unsteady movement, and hopping suggests a light, unusual movement. Together, they make the scene lively.
The poem uses vivid imagery. The reader can picture the shoe on the head, the hats on feet, the raised shoe, and the bun held near the nose. Imagery means language that creates a sensory or mental picture. In this poem, the imagery is especially effective because the pictures are strange, clear, and amusing.
What is the effect of phrases such as funny sounding sight and funny feeling sound? They make the man's appearance and song seem unusual through playful combinations of words. They also reinforce the repeated idea of fun. Do not call these phrases similes because they do not compare one thing with another using like or as.
The word funny is repeated frequently. Its repetition keeps the main quality of the man in the reader's mind. It also creates rhythm and emphasis. A good answer can say that the poet repeats funny to highlight the unusual, amusing nature of the man's appearance, sound, and actions, and to maintain the playful tone.
Active recall time. What does staggered mean? What is a current? And which movement word describes the man's final action? The answers are moved unsteadily, a small seedless raisin, and hopped. If you had to check one answer, check the difference between the noun current and the phrase current bun.
The structure of the poem is in dialogue form. We hear the funny man's words when he offers the rose, and we hear the narrator's words in response and in the question about the hats. Dialogue makes the encounter feel immediate. It allows the characters' personalities and reactions to appear through their own speech.
There is also monologue like quality in the narrator's description because the narrator tells us what happens. But when the question asks for the structure of the poem, the expected choice in the activity is dialogue. The presence of spoken exchanges is the deciding clue. Read the question carefully rather than choosing a term simply because the narrator speaks for many lines.
The phrases sounding sight and hopped home are examples of alliteration. Alliteration is the repetition of a beginning consonant sound in nearby words. The repeated sound adds musicality and makes the phrases memorable. Do not label them similes, because there is no comparison using like or as.
The poem also uses inversion in the line order. The natural order would be I had never seen such a funny sounding sight before. The poem places but never had I seen before at the beginning to maintain rhythm. Inversion means changing the usual word order, often for rhythm or poetic effect.
Exam point when explaining inversion, write two things. First, state that the usual word order has been changed. Second, state the purpose, which here is to maintain rhythm. If the question asks you to rewrite the line in correct order, do that directly and do not add a long explanation before it.
The chapter connects this playful poem with the idea of a limerick. A limerick is a nonsensical and funny verse of 5 lines. The rhyme scheme of a limerick is AABBA. The first, second, and fifth lines rhyme with one another. while the third and fourth lines form the other rhyme pair.
The writing activity asks students to create a limerick using a structure, introduce a person or place, tell a silly story in the middle lines, and finish with an unexpected ending. The important exam detail is the pattern AABBA. The creative task also reflects the chapter's larger interest in nonsense, humor, imagination, and surprise.
Quick check. If a poem has 5 lines and follows AABABA, can it contain a silly story and an unexpected ending? Yes. That combination is especially suitable for comic verse. Also remember that rhyme scheme is about the pattern of end sounds, not simply the number of lines.
We are now entering the language learning section. The chapter introduces phrasal verbs through expressions such as walking down, taking out, and sat down. A phrasal verb combines a verb with a preposition or adverb, and together they function as one unit. The combined meaning may differ from the individual words considered separately.
Activity then asks students to work with combinations such as take up, take after, take in, take over, and take off. Their meanings include beginning to study or practice something, resembling a family member, understanding something, assuming control or responsibility, and becoming successful or popular quickly. Learn the whole phrase, not just the verb take.
For example, take up means to begin a hobby or activity, while take after means to resemble someone, usually a family member. Take in means to understand or comprehend, and take over means to assume control. Take off can mean becoming successful or popular quickly in the matching activity. Context decides the meaning of a phrasal verb.
That is a common confusion. The same verb can form different phrasal verbs, and the added word changes the meaning. So, if a question gives a blank, first read the entire sentence. Do not choose a phrase only because it contains the correct main verb. Meaning and context must agree.
The chapter also includes listening activities in which a girl narrates a personal incident. Students select a related picture and later arrange events in order. The specific value of this work is sequencing. When listening, identify what happened first, what happened next, and what happened last. That same skill helps you narrate the events of A Funny Man clearly.
The speaking activity asks students to tell a joke using different voices for the narrator, the man, and God. The educational point is not just to perform loudly, it is to notice how voice, tone, and manner change according to the speaker. That connects with this poem, where dialogue helps create personality and humor.
A useful revision task is to teach a friend the difference between walking, staggering, and hopping. First, define each word, then connect each one to the poem. Teaching someone else is a form of active recall because you must retrieve the meaning, organize it, and explain it without depending entirely on the textbook.
Let us practice the first extract. It includes the man's formal offer, the current bun, the narrator staggering back, and the word bell. The first question asks why the man addresses the poet as Your Highness. A safe answer is that he uses an exaggerated, respectful form of address, which adds to the playful and humorous tone.
The second question asks for a phrase indicating a polite quest. The answer is, allow me to present. The third question depends on identifying the image of a current bun, so read the visual options carefully. The fourth asks why well expresses surprise. The reason is that the object offered as a rose is actually a current bun, making the situation unexpected.
Now, the second extract begins with the funny feeling sound and ends with the man hopping home on his head. If asked which line tells us that the sound was unique, look for the line saying that you never heard such a funny feeling sound in all your life. The answer must show uniqueness, not merely mention that the man sang.
The question about my friend can be answered through the tone of the interaction. The narrator calls him my friend because the encounter is friendly and light-hearted, and the man has behaved politely. The question about the final line asks for the reader's feeling. Since the ending is comic and unexpected, cheerful is the best choice.
Let us try one without looking back. Why does the narrator stagger against the wall? Think of the immediate cause. Correct. The narrator is surprised by the unusual presentation and reacts unsteadily. Do not write that the narrator is injured or frightened, because the poem does not say that. Confusion and surprise are supported, injury is not.
Another good question is why dialogues have been included. Dialogue makes the poem lively and immediate. It lets the reader hear the man's exaggerated politeness and the narrator's surprise and curiosity. It also breaks the description into an interaction. Therefore, the dialogue contributes to humor as well as characterization.
We are moving into the exam revision section now. For a short answer describing the man, mention his shoe on the head, hats on the feet, polite manners, and unusual actions. For a question about humor, explain the mismatch between normal expectations and what he does. For a character question, use evidence from his dress, speech, song, and exit.
For a longer answer about language, organize your response into three parts. Begin with the vivid imagery of the strange clothing and movements. Then discuss the dialogue and the unexpected current bun. Finish with sound effects such as alliteration, repeated use of funny, and the rhythmic word order. End by linking these features to the humorous tone.
Suppose the question asks how humor is shown through actions and dialogue. Your answer should not become a plot retelling only. Mention an action, such as wearing a shoe on the head or hopping home on the head. Then mention dialogue, such as offering a currant bun as a rose and the narrator's witty response. Finally, explain that surprise creates laughter.
For a question about societal norms and individuality, be balanced. The funny man's clothing and movement differ from ordinary expectations in the poem, yet he is polite and friendly. This allows the reader to see unconventional behavior as a source of imagination and amusement. Do not claim that every unusual behavior is automatically good. Simply explain what this poem presents.
Here is a compact answer writing formula: point, proof, purpose. State the point, give a detail from the poem, and explain its effect. For example, the tone is humorous because the man wears a shoe on his head and hats on his feet, creating an absurd image. That is much stronger than writing only. The poem is funny.
Let us do a true or false round. The funny man is ill-mannered. False, because his manners are described as polite. He gives the narrator a real rose. False, he presents a currant bun as a rose. He wears two hats on his feet. True. He hops home on his head. True. The poet has never heard such a funny song. True in the sense expressed by the poem.
One small clarification: the poem says the narrator has never heard such a funny feeling sound, while the textbook activity may phrase this as an amusing song. Both refer to the unusual quality of the man's singing. In an answer, stay close to the wording of the question and explain that the sound is presented as unique and funny.
We are entering the final section. Let us rebuild the chapter from memory. The funny man arrives in a bizarre outfit, but he's polite. He offers a currant bun as a rose, and the narrator reacts with surprise. He sings a funny song, ignores the question about his hats, and hops away on his head.
The main ideas are humor, wit, imagination, and individuality. The poem creates laughter through unusual clothing, unexpected objects, strange movement, playful dialogue, vivid imagery, repetition, alliteration, and inversion. Its mood remains light-hearted because the events are presented as amusing rather than threatening.
Your vocabulary checklist is short but important. Current is a small seedless raisin. A currant bun contains currants, and staggered means moved unsteadily. Your language checklist includes phrasal verbs, vivid imagery, dialogue form, alliteration in sounding sight, and hopped home, an inversion used to maintain rhythm.
Here is a common mistake to avoid. Do not write that the funny man was rude, injured, or dishonest unless the question and text support such a claim. The poem shows a peculiar but polite man in a playful encounter. Also, do not confuse a real rose with the currant bun he presents.
Your concrete next step is a 5-minute challenge. Without opening the chapter, write 3 sentences, one describing the appearance, one explaining the current bun joke, and one explaining the final action. Then add one sentence on the theme of individuality. Check whether every sentence contains a detail from the poem and an explanation of its effect.
And for one final challenge, answer this in your own words. Why does the poem leave the funny man's reasons unexplained? A thoughtful response will say that the unanswered question preserves wonder and keeps the playful absurdity alive. The man does not become ordinary through an explanation. He remains memorable because his actions continue to surprise us.
You have revised A Funny Man as a complete literary lesson, not merely as a funny incident. If one doubt remains, use Edzy to question the idea, test your answer, and practice explaining it without rote memorization. Remember the 3 words for strong responses: detail, reason, effect. Thank you for revising with us, and keep finding thoughtful joy in unexpected ideas.